Good afternoon, everyone. This is probably one of the only videos I'm going to record in English. And the reason why I'm doing it in English is because I have to talk about some things that are very controversial, and it's a topic that I always consider about. I talk about talking about the languages, and I have to talk um, in detail, and I want people, my family and friends, to understand. So today, I went to a place where there's a bunch of Russian speakers. They're speaking Russian most of the time, Ruski. Then some guy comes in who is another guy. He knows. I know he knows Hebrew, and the other guy that's just speaking that with the Russian guy also knows Hebrew. They didn't want. They didn't speak Hebrew with each other, and then the other people that they're the Russians. They the guy that was speaking starts instead of speaking to them in Russian and tell them about the story about where the guy was, whatever. Um, he gives all the explanation in English to these Russian people, and then as soon as the guy left, he goes back to speak to them in Russian. And I think just because the guy around him didn't know Russian, so he didn't want to speak in front of Russian. But I saw something happen the other day that some people they from Israel. They were speaking. They they were speaking. The mom and the parents were speaking with each other in English. But then when the person from Israel was speaking in, the was speaking, and then the three people were together. The mom and the daughter or the father were speaking to each other in the conversation with the Israeli. Were speaking to each other in English, but when they're speaking to the Israeli, they're speaking in Hebrew. Then I noticed that the parent that was also in Israel, whatever, he starts speaking to another guy that knows Hebrew, and I'm like, they're having a hard time. I'm like, and he's using all these like technical terms in English, and I'm like, you're living in the country, shouldn't you be having all those Hebrew words baked in your vocabulary? Because I know a lot of Israelis that I have to remind them constantly of the English words, of the Hebrew words to use because they forget about them because they're living here. My joke is, you've been living here for 1 month, you already start speaking, or a week, I should say, you know the English words, but you've been living 20 years in another country, and you still know your English words, but adapt to the you don't adapt to the words of the country, the language. Now I know that English being the international language, that is the case, and yes, why am I taught? Why do I mourn about this and I talk about this all the time? Because I feel that like it's causing other languages to die out. It's causing people not to take interest, and then it's like if everyone speaks English, no one will have a reason to speak in their language. I'm not saying that it's good for technology. I understand that. I read things. I understand things. It's better, but it's just I figure that like I I know I'm overanalyzing it and everything, but this is what really warns me, because like the only reason why I see people speaking with each other in their languages is because they don't know English. So if they because they know English and want to know English, and I notice my friends Israelis that once they know English so well, they'll just only speak English. They won't speak to their languages, and everything goes out the door. And then in the foreign languages, what they'll do is they'll import all the words that are obnoxious from the English language into their languages. I could go on about the words that are like hi, okay, bye, super. All these words that are so like low IQ words, I consider them low IQ. They bring them in, and in my mind, they pollute the other languages. Because in Hebrew, we have a word for good, for beseder, like beseder. Or we have a word for litroa, to see you. No, they have to say bye, whatever, or they hi. We have a word for shalom, which means peace. A really good word from the Torah. I could go on about the other seven languages that I know. The same thing happened. I saw from German thing, they use German, and they greet them with hi, Leute, instead of saying hello, Leute. Like there's hello, like, or you could say grusi, or you could say moin. Those are more dialects. Or you could say guten tag or guten abend. People don't say that. That's another thing that drives my gears. People don't say on the phone when they hang up on the phone. No one says good morning, good afternoon, greetings. There's one tech guy that used to say greetings. And I found that pretty hilarious. I liked it when he says that. But it's just like, even someone who's a rabbi, I'm not talking bad, but goes and says hi to someone in the shul. I shouldn't be talking bad, but it's just like don't you know, like, shalom aleichem, was machst du, how are you, just other stuff like that, and it just seems like even the older generation, they're buying into this garbage and the dumbing down of the languages. Yeah, so when someone's telling me, I go, I hate something, okay, and like it's like people don't realize there's other words, and no one can figure this out. Anyways, this is what I worry about. Me. This is why I have fears for me going to shul, synagogue, and Friday night stuff, because I get so overwhelmed. I want to put my foot in the shoes of not knowing English. I just want to get away from near English language. I just want to get total away from it. I just want to get away from it. It's like they can get away from their Hebrew, their Russian. They can get away from it by putting the changing the country into English. I can't get away. I can't get away. I can't get a vacation. I would love it where I would just rak ivrit, only rak ivrit, you know. And I try to do that in my work, but it's difficult because there's things like that he doesn't want to. They don't want to translate into, and I get it. But you can speak. I think you speak clean English, but you can't figure out clean other language because all the other languages have been so polluted with those English words. And yes, don't get me wrong. The Germanic languages have like certain words from that are, but then they change the spelling, they change some of the meanings, and but that's not the English. That's not the Anglicismos, what they call Anglicismos. That it's the occupying language. Another thing that really vexates is when you go to another country in in a stadium or in an airport, you don't see signs in their language of the country. It's like their country has been. I'm not gonna swear it here because it's on YouTube. It's been occupied. It's been occupied. It's like um, you go to the Netherlands. You don't see you don't see in the airports the Ankunft or whatever, or for arrival in the airport. You see only English, and even for car rental, you don't see that in English. In Dutch, you don't see that. And I remember going to the country, and I'm like, we're in the Netherlands. Speak Netherlands in Netherlands, also in Deutschland, same thing. And Israel is a little bit better because they added in three languages, which I could understand. It's just like they're training the population to be so unbaked in this English globalization that they're not honoring their local language for the people that are older or people that want to see it because it's like I don't know. I think now in Montreal they're starting to do bilingual. For a while it was only French that they put everything. You know what? I have no problem with the people speaking English, but it's like the language of the country should be it should be on the board. I mean, or both, or maybe the whole country should be in both languages. But I'm just saying, or this big population, like you would think, like in Miami, Florida, in the airport, they would have signs in Spanish or Espanol. No, they don't have it. But oh, we have the English over there. It's like, but the English speaker can get to the whole 9 yards without having to figure out another language. Can get there a whole way. And I see people traveling all the countries. And anyways, I could make a whole report about this. Why am I speaking this in English? Because this is such a hard niche topic, and I want people to understand it. I would love to if I could speak this in Dutch, or Netherlands, or whatever, or Espanol, whatever. O sea. And then when people in English, they're speaking a little about it Spanish. Oh, and then they really speak Spanish. When they speak about Spanish, they don't. They'll say this is this word. Here's another thing about tutorials that really bothers me. They'll say this is this word. Translate it. This is this word. Está bien. Very good. You know they'll say everything in English and they'll translate it. They'll say good. Hello, this is a Spanish class, blah blah blah, for the word haber. So we're gonna talk about the word haber. Let's talk habia, habira, habias, whatever. And then they'll do it. I would like to go. I would love, and then they would give you the translation where they don't give you a full immersion in the language, where it's like you don't hear "Hola, cómo estás?" Heute vamos a hablar sobre la palabra haber, por ejemplo. O que sea. Kilo Zekmozel, like that. Anyways, now my mind's going to their languages because I'm thinking about it. Anyway, that really just bothers me. And I see things that are like Dutch and Spanish, and they go between the both languages and they translate it, which is fine. But it just, another thing that really fusses me about this English they show about about when the people put titles about the YouTube videos, they'll write the titles of the YouTube videos in English, and then they'll speak it in another foreign language. It's like, what the heck? Put it in the language that you're speaking in. The titles of the description. I understand maybe if it's Eins, like the first level A1 or whatever, but said they're fine. I get it. No big deal. I understand that, or you're trying to just learn a few travel phrases. Fine. Beseder. Evante. But it's like your advanced language. Why are you writing the language in an English letter about advanced Russian? Unless you're like some people I know who can speak the language but cannot read it. Which I know plenty of people who speak Russian but cannot read it. Not Premiere. And it happens. They speak the language but they can't read it. That's a whole other story. But if basically if you're really like, oh, I want to see it so you can be thinking in that language. And I see English comprehensible input. 90% of the stuff that's for English comprehensible input has no subtitles in another language. You could switch into the language you want to, but the people don't put dual subtitles at the same time most of the time. Unless it's targeted specifically for Spanish audience or German audience, or Okasea, or whatever. Then, yeah. But the majority of the English people, you can get chista angliski, like clean English, without full immersion, without other languages, without things being translated. And like when I want to explain a word about another language, it's like translated. No, I don't want to know the translation. That's why I like to use Gemini to learn languages. Because when I use Gemini, it gives you the definition in the language of itself. I say, what betekent, Netherlands, like what betekent? What does it mean? What betekent? By voorbeeld. What betekent? What is the verschil tussen Herrlichkeit and Look? Herrlich and Look. What is the difference? Whatever. And I put it in there, and it gives you the answer in the language I want it in, not in English with all the stuff. Maybe sometimes it gives you a little like translation in English, but it's like people when they teach languages these days. I do the same thing when I teach where I teach a language. I would translate it in English, but no. We translate everything from the other words from English, from Spanish to English, but we don't. We can't do reverse translation. We can't translate. Well, unless it's like the newspaper or the official state stuff. Just like the guy that I was at this, whatever, today at the meeting, whatever, when he was talking to the bunch of Russian guys. The guy should have spoke whatever he was saying about his story, translating it back to the Russians. Obviously, when the guy left, they spoke back into Russian, so, um, you know, why do I get so emotional about this? Because it's like, people when they speak English, they don't want to throw in the foreign words. But when they speak the foreign language, I was hearing the Israelis when they were talking about deals of oh God, just like of selling in Israel. and then they would give the narrated stuff out in English. But if I were to have a conversation, I would have a conversation in English with my English friends. I wouldn't A normal English person wouldn't quote things like in Israel if they're living in Israel. Oh, הוא אמר לי את זה, ואני הייתי צריך לחזור את זה, ואתה יכול לחזור את זה, ואתה לא יכול לעשות את זה, וכאילו וכאילו וכאילו, כאילו. You get what I mean? They wouldn't re-narrate the story in the language. Like, I hear my mom and my sister, when they were talking about my grandparents, my Bobby and Zadie, when my mom and sister, they would say everything in English, chista Engliski, and everything in English, but they wouldn't quote in the original language that they were saying it in to make it sound original. But if it was, say, Russian speaking with a Russian or Israeli speaking with a Russian, it would be quoted in using English words 90% of the time. Yes, there are some foreigners that when they quote things from another language, they quote it in their language that they're talking in. They're not translating into English in the original language. But what I'm saying is that English is such a rigid language that we don't import like all the for a while we had a lot of Yiddish words, a lot of this and that. But I don't see us adding a lot of words like Yofi or Beseder in our language. No, it's just okay at the doctor's like, oh, it's so formal, It's like you have other words like all right, very good, perfect, that's nice, you got it. There's so many beautiful words to use. I'm not an English learner. That they have to export it to other languages. I've talked about this before. I'm not going on another rant. I think my dog wants to go in now. I don't know. Anyways, I know this has been a long video. I know I spoke English, and I never, ever, ever speak in English with my YouTube fans, because always in the language, because I'm interested in learning языки, languages. Я хочу изучать языка, я хочу говорить, I want to speak. But the reason why I'm doing this is because this is what causes me demotivation and hang on, I'm sorry to go and then I could go on. Here's something I forgot. The constant switching back to English when you're having a conversation with a native. Like, I approach someone, I go to some Jews, it's like, Atem Israel, and then they go to me, we're from the Holy Land. We're not from the Holy Land. And they answer in English. Or I live in another country, and I ask someone who speaks the language, and they answer in English. I'm like, it's like, you'd think that I speak in their language, they'd want to speak their language. That is one of the other reasons why I do not like speaking English with foreigners. Because it's like, hello, they're already telling us that their language is inferior and being greeted there, and then giving us less of an opportunity that it's become less, I guess, appropriate to answer back at the lady because you hear English, so you'll just answer back in English. You go, hi, hi, hello. You know, you're not going to think twice to do it. But if I see someone, but if a foreigner comes and I start speaking, hang on, anyways, надеюсь, это все. I hope that was it. Yeah, and they will switch to English when they're having their conversation, because someone else is there, foreigner or whatever, and you don't get welcome, like Baruch haba Israel, welcome to Israel. You don't get that welcoming, and then they switch there, and then their old language out the window. Anyways, my rant's done. Надеюсь, еще хорошо. I hope you have a great day. Espero que disfrutabas este video. I hope you enjoyed this video. Tut the fuck, I didn't care. Dewey.